Where could I have left it? Basket, come to me. I need you. Oh, there you are. Oh, boy. I've been looking everywhere for you. I should have been using you to begin with. Now I've got too much stuff in here. Oh, hi. Oh, are you new to this area? I don't remember seeing you before. Well, my name is Eve. I keep this garden here. Yes, these are my fruits of my harvest. I've just begun picking them. I'm going to have a good harvest this year, but it's not going to be the best harvest I ever had. But you don't know about the harvest in this area? Well, I'd like to tell you about my garden here. I have all kinds of fruits and vegetables, all kinds of trees and vines, all kinds of plants. But they're nothing compared to what I first had in my first garden. Have you heard of my garden in Eden? Well, then I'd like to tell you about my garden in Eden, and I'd like to tell you of the best harvest I ever had. Why don't you sit down? Now, I'm going to put this fruit in this larger basket so I can go back and get some more in the smaller basket. So let's have a seat and I'll tell you all about it. It was many years ago, and my husband and my husband's name is Adam. Maybe you've heard of him. Adam and I lived in the Garden of Eden. Now we're east of Eden, but back then it was the only place we knew. It was the only home I knew before this place, the only home Adam knew. Adam was there first because God had taken clay from the earth and dust and formed it and made Adam. And then he breathed into Adam's nostrils the breath of life. And he took him and he placed him in the Garden of Eden. It was an enclosed, safe place. Nothing but good was there. There was every kind of plant and every kind of tree and every kind of vine, every kind of bush, and every kind of animal. And God brought all the animals to Adam to name. He named each one. He gave them their particular name. But still, Adam didn't find a companion that was suitable for him. And he was lonely. And God knew that he needed a companion, someone with whom he could talk and share and live life. And so one day, God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. And as Adam slept, God took from him a rib from his side. And with the rib, God fashioned me and brought me forth to Adam. When Adam saw me, he called me woman, for I had come forth out of Adam. And the two of us were in paradise together. We had all the food we wanted, all the fun we wanted. And God had said we could take and eat of every plant in the garden. Every single plant was food for us and for the animals that were with us. And so it was that there was only one thing that God told us. God said, "Do not eat from the fruit of the tree in the center of the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It is near the tree of life, but do not eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil." And so we didn't, and time went on, and we enjoyed the various kinds of produce. And one day we were in the garden. It was an ordinary day. And the serpent began speaking with me. And the serpent said, "Look at this fruit. This fruit is fruit to make one wise. This fruit is desirable to look upon. This is good fruit. And I said, oh no, not that fruit. That is the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God said we should not eat that fruit or even touch that fruit. And the serpent said to me, well, that's just because God does not want you to be like God. And I thought, oh, I would love to be like God. God is wonderful. God comes walking with us in the cool of the evening. God made me. I would love to be like God. God is wonderful. So I took the fruit and I held it and nothing happened. And I took a bite of it and nothing happened. God had said I would die. I didn't die. And so I gave some to my husband with me. And he took it and he ate it. And as soon as he took a bite, his eyes were opened and so were mine. And we saw that we were naked. And we went and hid behind the bushes. And we made clothing from the leaves of the bushes. They were fig leaves, very large leaves, but very scratchy leaves. And we hid our nakedness. He was over there and I was over here when God came walking in the garden. And God said, Adam, where are you? And my husband tried to hide, but God pursued. And in the course of time, Adam spoke up and said, here I am. And God said, what have you done? Have you eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? And Adam said, it was the woman you gave me. She gave me the fruit. And then God said to me, woman, what have you done? And I said, the serpent deceived me and I did eat. And then God said, because of what we had done, the ground would be cursed. Adam, from the rest of his life, would have to work the soil with thorns and thistles, and in the sweat of his brow, he would eat his food. His labor with the land would be hard. And God told me that my labor in bearing forth children would be hard, and that I would bear children in the pangs of labor, but even so I would still desire to be with my husband and make more children. God told the serpent that because of what the serpent had done, the serpent would crawl upon the belly for the rest of the serpent's life and eat dust. And God told the serpent that there would always be enmity, warring, fighting, animosity between the serpent and my offspring. All of the woman's offspring would be fighting against the serpent forever until God's promise would come true. And that promise was to me that I, a woman, would bear a son who would redeem the sin of the world that we had brought forth. That my son would be nipped at on the heel by the serpent, but that my son's foot would crush the serpent. And so it was, we were taken by the hand of God, and God told us that a sacrifice must be made, and that clothing must be made, and garments were made for us, the sheep, the the lamb, the ram were killed, and their blood shed to cover our sin, to atone for our disobedience. And from their hides, garments were made for us. We wore those garments in the garden. Things were never quite the same. But in the course of time, God said, lest they eat of the tree of life and live in this sinful state forever until a Redeemer can come forth, we best remove them from the garden and from the tree of life. And so it was that God drove Adam from the garden, and me with him. There was an angel set before us to keep the garden gate closed so no one could enter in. And we came here, east of Eden, and I planted this garden, and Adam his garden. And we have been laboring for our food ever since. I brought forth my firstborn son and named him Cain, believing I had received the Redeemer from God. And we waited for the time that Cain would redeem us and crush the serpent under his feet. Another son was born, his name Abel, a sweet, dear boy. Cain worked in the field with his father, and he brought forth much harvest. But Abel kept the livestock. In the course of time, we learned to make our own sacrifice for sin, and we brought forth the first fruits of our harvest. Cain brought forth from the field the first produce of the field and brought it unto God. And Abel brought forth the first of his flock and sacrificed it unto God. But God was not pleased with Cain's offering. And Cain was upset and went into the field. And God went to talk with him and console him and to instruct him and correct him. And he told him and warned him that the enemy was waiting to take him in his anger, and that he needed to resist the temptation to sin. But, alas, he did not. And he called his brother Abel into the field, and in jealousy the two quarreled, and Abel was dead. Cain tried to hide the thing, but God came looking for Cain. He said, "Your brother's blood cries out to me." Abel tried to hide it at first. He had told God that he wasn't his brother's keeper and he didn't know where he was. He lied about the whole thing. But in the end, God said he would be sent away. He could no longer live in our community with us. He was sent to be a wanderer forever. That was his punishment, that he would wander the rest of his life. And so he left us. He wandered. He was afraid that anyone who found him would kill him because he had brought death and shed blood in the earth. He was the first murderer. God said, "I'll place a mark upon you so that people will know that if they kill you, they will reap more from me." And so Cain went out with his mark and began wandering, but he didn't even continue his wandering. He decided to settle with a wife and start a city of his own. His wife brought forth her firstborn son, and Cain named him Enoch and named the town Enoch. Enoch had children, and they had children, and there were more children, and unto the 7th generation, and Lemuel was born. Lamech, they called him. Lamech took 2 wives, and the 2 wives bore him children. One bore him 2 sons. One was Tubal-Cain, he worked with the livestock, and the other was Jubal, and he invented music. The other wife had a son and a daughter, and the daughter's name was Naamah. It was one day that Lamech was with the other men, and someone offended him, and he struck that person down for no reason, and someone else offended him, and he struck him down for no reason. And one day he killed 2, and he came back to his home, and to his 2 wives he made a poetry and sang a song of how his punishment would be 7 times that of Cain, because he had struck down 2 men in one day. And everyone paid attention that death had come again into the land through Cain. About that time, I gave birth to another son named Seth. And Seth would be the promised one to whom God would give the charge that Messiah, sent from God, should come and destroy the evil one, destroy the serpent, that wicked one. For wickedness had begun to grow and grow and grow. It still wasn't the fullness of time, though. Seth did not produce the one who would be Messiah. My life in the garden had been perfect. I had been the first woman born of a man and God. Never having a mother, never having a sister, never having a brother, never having an aunt or an uncle or a cousin. I grew with God, and I made a mistake. And God made a way for my mistake. And so it is that promise that I look forward to even today. Even Adam looks forward to that promise as we continue to bear sons and daughters, waiting for Seth's seed to produce our redemption. I was the first woman called wife. I was the first woman to have known a man, to have walked with God, to have talked with God, to have heard the voice of God. The first woman ever to eat fruit, to know the fruit of sin, to know the promise of righteousness. The first woman ever. But we are here, and even now, in this earth, the daughters of Adam are marrying the sons of men. The sons of men and the sons of God and the daughters of God are intermarrying. There are giants coming into the land because of these unions. There are ones called Nephilians. They are the ones who are larger than any human being has ever been. They say, are ones that have married with angels. For there was an angel, a beautiful angel named Lucifer, Lucifer lived in the heavenlies with God. And one day, Lucifer mounted a rebellion in the heavens, and he gathered with him his 1/3 of the host of heaven. The other third was ruled by Michael, the archangel, and the last third was ruled by the Son of God. And so Lucifer took his third of the host of heaven and rebelled against God and tried to make a throne for himself. And he said, I will be like God. I didn't know then that what I had done in eating forbidden fruit was like that of Lucifer. But for Lucifer, he was cast down to the earth. And some say he was the one who inhabited the serpent and spoke to me that day. Some say it was Lucifer, Satan, the dragon, the serpent, that caused sin to come to the earth. That he is the father of sin. That he is the one who comes to steal. I know he stole my place in the garden. He is the one who comes to destroy. I know he destroyed my life that day. He's the one who comes to kill. I know he killed my righteousness that day. But there's one greater, and that is God. And God made a plan to redeem me through the birth of my children. God told me I will be saved in childbearing. And so as the child comes forth, who will be Messiah, hope will be fulfilled. Messiah will come. Messiah will conquer Satan. Messiah will conquer serpent, devil, the evil one, that wicked one. And we will all be made righteous again. Righteous in right standing with God. Right. We will be justified, just as if I'd never sinned. And even now, when I face the table of the Lord, I say my prayer, oh God, that I would remember that the food that I eat, the meat that I take, comes because something has died to give me life. Before, the eating was a pleasure. My life was coming from God. Now, in my unregenerated body, my life must come from the fruit, from the vegetables, from the animals. And they give their life that I might live. They give their skin that I might be covered and warm and protected from the elements. Before, in the Garden of Eden, I needed no clothing. I needed no protection. God was my garment. God was my protection. I needed no warmth. God was my warmth. In this cold, windy world, life has to be shed to give me life. Life has to be taken to give me life. Oh, for the day of redemption, when again I will be clothed in the righteousness of God, when again my food will be to do the will of God, when again I will be made right with God, just as if I'd never sinned. But until that day, I tend the garden and I bring my food for my family that they might live to see the day that God fulfills the promise that the sent one, the anointed one of God, the Messiah, will redeem us from all the evil works of the evil one and restore us once again to paradise.